Hello and welcome to the Pretentious Show. I'm Alexander Davenport. I don't know about you, but there's something sexy, or at least romantic, about art crimes. The thought of an art heist conjures up the image of the gentleman thief, or the rich art lover stealing for the love of the work. And an art forger makes you think of an artist who's down on his luck, but the skill and know-how to fool the establishment and shake up the economy. And art vandalism may not be the most respected activity of all time, but it's a really good way to make a point heard, even if it's the wrong thing to do. Hell, Duchamp's fountain has been urinated onto 4 times on 3 separate occasions. So put on your stripy jumper and grab your pillowcase labelled swag, as we not necessarily celebrate but acknowledge the top 10 most notorious and outrageous crimes for and against art. Number 10, Tom Keating. Keating was the art forger. 2,000 fakes are under his name, or more accurately, not under his name. He worked from the end of World War II until his arrest in 1977. It was an outright prod at the art market. He said the market was dominated by avant-garde fashion, with critics and dealers often conniving to line their own pockets at the expense of naive collectors and of impoverished artists. He never gave a full list of his fakes, but naturally enough, the ones that were discovered lost all value immediately. However, due to the large amount of work, Keating became, well, let's face it, famous, and kind of a hero to many, one to shake up the greedy art market, to reevaluate how we evaluate. Keating got his own show on Channel 4 before his death in the 80s, so therefore his work, you can see where this is going now, became valuable. An original Tom Keating fake these days would cost you up to £12,000. True, it's not as expensive as it would be if it was 100% genuine, but that's a thought, isn't it? I mean, the artist went out of his way to screw up the art economy by selling fakes, purposefully putting clues as to the real date of the work, like writing in lead paint to show up in X-rays. By the way, if you want my Mark Rothko, it's available on Etsy. Then, when all cards are on the table, and after he went all in on a bluff, his work still remains valuable, and in circulation. Amazing. Well, no one's perfect, as Michel Duchamp would say. Number 9. Nazi art thefts in World War II. This is the great theft known throughout the world, told again and again. In places of Nazi-occupied Europe, the Nazis confiscated tens and thousands of works from their legitimate Jewish owners. Modern art was considered degenerate, a product of decadent 20th century society. They were ordered to be destroyed or sold off. The more expensive and prominent works were to be housed eventually in the European Art Museum in Linz. Well, Hitler was an artist too, you know. I mean, I guess he was looking for good taste to replace his lack of talent. Hell, he was denied entry to the fine art school in Vienna. Oh, that's one of his? Yeah, a bit boring, but yeah, alright. He had skill. You know, when you hate someone so much, you just really wish that their lack of talent neatly coincided directly with their lack of morality. Sometimes you realize life isn't a cartoon. Thankfully, his plans never came into fruition. Some were confiscated by Allies at the end of the war. Many ended up in the hands of respectable collectors and institutions. However, sadly, many are still missing, presumed destroyed. Yeah, sad to say, despite countless humorous videos of dancing Nazis and hilarious memes with Hitler, sometimes you are reminded we still lost quite a lot in World War II. The lives that were taken and the culture that has been broken or lost will always have an impact. Yes, I realize I'm just commenting on the art that was stolen here, and by all comprehension, that might be considered a worthless thing. But while something valuable like life is worth fighting for, perhaps a worthless thing like art is worth living for. No, that sounded tacky and cheap. I do apologize. Luckily, this story has been converted into a movie, and it starred George Clooney. Maybe he has something worthwhile listening to that is actually tasteful.
Who would make sure that the statue of David is still standing, or that Mona Lisa is still smiling? Who would be their protectors?
See? There you go. That's George Clooney for you. See, we can talk about World War II in a tasteful manner. Hey, I wonder what else is on YouTube.
Einstein! 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 Eine Sache deutet mich nun schnell! Alles soll sich alles vergessen! Schneller!
Number 8. The Da Vinci Shooting. In July 1987, a man called Roger Cambridge entered the London National Gallery. He pulled out a sawn-off shotgun, concealed under his coat, took aim, then shot this drawing. The Virgin and Child by Leonardo da Vinci. The pellets did not penetrate the protective glass, but shattered it, and splinters caused significant damage to the artwork. What was the reason? Well, he wanted to express his disgust with political, social, and economic conditions in Britain. Well done, you showed them. No, you're just an idiot. He was placed in a mental institution. The artwork, thankfully, remains. Due to advanced technology and charcoal, the drawing is available for all to see. It took a year, but yep, there it is. Sorry, that's it. I don't want to talk any more about this. No, I'm serious. I don't care about this at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an exciting story, but there's nothing more to it. I mean, bad man walks in, shoots Leonardo da Vinci's drawing, and then gets put into a mental institution, and the artwork is recovered. That's it. I mean, I really don't want to talk more about the rantings of a madman and his sawn-off shotgun. I really don't. I'll get into more detail eventually, but only if, I don't know, we're invaded by an army of Leonardo da Vinci paintings and we have to defend ourselves with armed combat. What? They were Caravaggios, not Leonardo da Vinci's. It's a lot more common than you think. Number 7. The Vomit Vandal and the Yellowism Vandal. This one is a tie. The Leonardo da Vinci shooting was a tragedy and it was exciting, but he was just a bad Batman villain. Yeah, nothing really worth talking about, just a mental case. These two vandals are actually entertaining. In 1996, at New York's Museum of Modern Art, a Mondrian and a Duffy was vandalized when Jubin Brown, a multimedia artist, vomited primary colors onto them. I told you this guy was interesting, did I not? This guy was a pro. He went in undetected. I mean, if you go up to a painting with a spray can, that's a red flag right there. But no one sees vomit coming. I mean, unless you start to drink paint then and there, and then some people will notice. Anyway, he didn't vomit paint. It was brightly coloured food like jelly and icing, so the damage was minimal. The paintings just needed a clean. This is why he got away with it the first time. Yes, this was on 2 separate occasions. Raoul Duffy's harbour at Le Havre was attacked with red vomit on May 15th, because apparently the work was boring and needed some colour. Not validated, but I've heard worse reasons to vomit onto a painting. On November the 2nd, Pierre Mondrian's composition with red and blue was vomited on in blue vomit. He said, "I found this lifeless threatening and it made me sick." Yeah, that was the worst reason. You know, a lot of the time you see a brilliant work of art that's very profound and think, yeah, that's pretty damn good. Until the artist opens their mouth and then they are revealed for the child they actually are. Jubal Brown's place of study, the Ontario College of Art and Design, called Brown's behaviour reprehensible in the extreme. I wouldn't have bothered using such big words on Mr. Brown. I mean, he was just a cry for attention, which, unfortunately, I'm giving him right now. It's at this moment I think I should mention Woodzimaris Ulmanek, a bloke who vandalized a Rothko in 2012. He wrote in black paint his name and the words, "A potential piece of yellowism." Yellowism is yet another art movement. Yes, I know you could fill a phone book with art isms. Please feel to look up thisisyellowism.com and try and make sense of it and report back to me, okay? No, really, I'm serious. I want to figure this thing out. Umaniak said, "Art allows us to take what someone's done and put a new message on it." This, in comparison to Brown's vomit, kind of seems like a more genuine form of argument, but it still does not verify the vandalism. I say this only because it cost the taxpayer £200,000 to reconstruct the Rothko. Ulmaniak was sentenced to 2 years, but this is what's interesting. He regrets his actions. He said, "I apologize to the British public for what I did. I suppose I wanted to change the art world, but of course I did it in a very, very wrong way. I spent almost a year and a half in prison, and the British people have paid huge restoration costs, so it definitely wasn't worth doing it. And I'm sure the restoration team has done a wonderful job, and I encourage everyone to see the restored picture." He didn't vandalize Rothko randomly, far from it. Umaniak saw Rothko as one of history's greatest painters, and interpreted this in a very interesting way. Yes, the British public was hurt by a £200,000 cleaning bill, but is Umaniak to blame for making a statement, or is the art establishment to blame for valuing this painting so much? Nice questions, but in the end, he knew the value, he knew the consequences, and he just wrote his name on a multi-million-pound artwork. Not validated. Number 6. The Scream Theft. On the 12th of February 1994, Edvard Munch's pastel version of the Scream was stolen from the National Gallery in Oslo, Norway. The security was low due to the Winter Olympics being held. The thieves left a note saying, "Thanks for the poor security." Those cheeky bastards. Of course, the crooks weren't messing about. They stole one of modern art's great treasures, an icon of the Expressionist movement, a symbol of the Gothic subculture, and a marginal fetus to Tracy Emin. They held the Scream on ransom for
$1 million.
Thus gave investigators a chance to create an elaborate sting. The thieves were caught and the pastel was recovered. However, the thieves escaped sentencing. This was due to a loophole. The agents involved in the sting operations had entered Norway under false identities. You know, I still don't understand why that should stop the sentencing. I mean, the evidence is right here, and the thieves actually stole Munch's vampire in 88. Oh well. The pastel was recovered and in 2012 was sold at auction, going under the hammer for $120 million. Okay, I'll let that sink in a little bit. $120 million for a pastel. And it's not even the Scream that everyone else knows about. This is. Oh, and this was stolen too. And this was done in much more violent circumstances. No lack of security, no funny note, it was armed robbery. 22nd of August 2004, masked gunman stole 2 paintings by Edvard Munch, The Scream and Madonna. both from the museum in Oslo. The next year, the 4 men were arrested, and the paintings were not found, believed to be burned to destroy all evidence. This, however, did not stop the 3 men from being convicted and sentenced between 4 to 8 years in prison in 2006. And 2 of the convicted were ordered to pay compensation of 86 million euros to the city. They didn't, by the way. But hey, paintings were recovered. Yep, they were recovered and unharmed. Well, a few scratches here or there, but, that could be restored. So, in the end, happy ending. Paintings are recovered, bad guys go to jail, good story. Unlike the time I tried to steal Tracy Emin's bed. Number 5. Hans Balman, the serial vandal. I don't want to give this guy too much attention because he had serious health problems. But hey, with a top 10 list of art crimes, I can't ignore him. The man was diagnosed with personality disorder and depression. Throughout his life, starting in Germany in 1937, Hans was treated with tranquilizers, antidepressants, insulin, antipsychotic drugs, behavior therapy, group therapy, and electroshock therapy. Apparently none of these worked. But this is why I mentioned him. Armed with acid or fire, between 1977 and 2006, Hans damaged over 50 paintings worth more than 138 million euros. He attacked artists like Rubens, Rembrandt, and Dürer. The reason? Well, you can imagine the reasons are sketchy. His wife died in 1977 under tragic circumstances. She was the one who showed him the value of art in our culture. When she left him, it must have triggered something. He went in and out of jail all of his life and died in 2009. A tragic and sad case indeed. And because I don't want to end this segment on a low, and because I have no footage of this vandalism, I've constructed this collection of reenactments for you. Reference humor didn't work at all. I'm still depressed. What do you think, Andy? Good idea, Andy. I wasn't this sad since the last time I had sex with myself.
Well, that was awkward. Yep. That doesn't usually happen. Yes, it does. And I know it does. Where are you going? I've got a thing. Want to watch TV? Oh God, yes.
Number 4. Banksy vandalizing the segregation wall. I'm going to talk about the state of Palestine. Because I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't really want to get into anything regarding this subject, so I'll just reduce the introduction to its absolute minimum. Israel, Palestine, conflict, giant concrete wall. Did I miss anything? Well, of course I did, because I'm unqualified to comment on this, but that doesn't stop others from doing so. In 2005, Banksy, yes, I know you're sick of hearing about him, graffitied the segregation wall. I don't think I need to tell you how dangerous this is. I'm unsure if he was the first, but he definitely was not the last. Others have vandalized the wall on both sides. Some have even torn down parts. John English even joined them. Funny. I haven't actually seen anyone from Palestine or Israel graffiti the wall yet. I'm just throwing that out there, I mean, I haven't looked into the subject properly myself. I understand that. I also understand there's a lot of local graffiti there done by the by the actual people who live around the area. I understand that, you know. I'm just saying there's a lot of words written in English there. That's all. Just saying. Number 3, Michelangelo's forged sleeping cherub. As far as what I can tell, this was the earliest reported cases of art forgery, or at least the most famous artist. Who forged Michelangelo, you may ask? No, no, no. He was the forger. You see, this was the Renaissance, a time of, apparently, rebirth, and the in thing was Greek marble statues, preferably genuine ones. This was because Greek was said to be where civilization bloomed, and was the greatest culture there ever was. So it should be imitated. Okay, thought Michelangelo, he created a sleeping cherub, banged it about, pissed on it, buried it, and dug it up a few weeks later. Ta-da! Ancient Greek statue ruin. I might point out that our interpretation of the ancient Greeks, as perceived by the Renaissance, is all wrong. Yes, they created statues in white marble, true, but the statues were painted in what can only be described as in gaudy colours. The centre of the civilized world, everyone. He managed to sell the cherub. It was then sold to someone else who noticed it was a forgery. Michelangelo was hunted down and told, "This is a really good forgery. Can you make me another one? One with your name attached to it instead?" Michelangelo was born.
As you would put it, Michelangelo, let's party.
Sorry about that, but the rules of internet videos state that there must be at least one reference to 80s or 90s cartoons in it. Sorry. Number 2, the theft of the Mona Lisa. Yes, I realize it's the cliché to have the Mona Lisa on an art list. I understand that. But, hey, she deserves it. It is undoubtedly the most famous painting in the world. Scholars will be forever discussing why this is. One reason is due to the three-quarter view, which is actually a new thing for the time, showing us the correct way to create a portrait from now on. It was one of the first oil paintings, it was painted by one of the great masters, and it was possessed by the wealthy for all of its existence. So it goes without need of saying, but this work of art is the most valuable and most important painting ever made, despite how much we are all sick of seeing it. How expensive is it? Well, on the list of expensive paintings sold, the Mona Lisa is just not on there. There's Picassos and Van Goghs galore, but no Michelangelos or Caravaggios. You see, the old masters are rarely in private hands. They're usually owned by the church, the state, or the national galleries. The best way to understand the value of said paintings is by the insurance. The last time the Mona Lisa was insured, it was in 1962 for $100 million US. This was for its trip to New York. Now, as a frame of reference, the most expensive painting sold so far is The Card Players by Van Gogh, with a selling price of $259 million. But that was in 2011. Adjusted for inflation, if the Mona Lisa was insured similarly today, it would be worth $760 million. That's a big hairy deal. So who would have the balls to steal such a thing? Well, this guy, in 1911. His name is Vincenzo Peruggia. He was an employee of the Louvre and an Italian patriot. He believed the painting should be returned to Italy for display. An art vigilante, if you will. He stayed behind at night in the Louvre. Then, in the morning, dressed as a museum worker, he casually took the painting off the hooks of the frame, tucked it under his coat, and calmly walked out. Heist of the century, everyone. He smuggled the painting back into Florence, Italy, and kept it in his apartment for 2 years, before finally gathering the courage to tell the curator of a Florence art gallery. The man, bless his heart, believed he would get a reward for smuggling in the artwork. He didn't, and was arrested. But I do believe he might have been their people's hero, because the Mona Lisa was actually exhibited throughout Italy, celebrating its return to the motherland before being sent back to the Louvre in 1913. Now, what the man did was wrong, there's no doubt about that. But it is kind of sweet to see an art crime occur with such unbiased and unselfish motivations. I mean, he stole the painting for the people to be exhibited throughout the country. And that's exactly what happened. And the people appreciated it. Perugia was served a very brief sentence. Hey, all you need is that Isleworth Mona Lisa and you've got that episode of Doctor Who. Yes, Leonardo painted another Mona Lisa. Yeah, it's okay, you can pause and have a look if you want to. I don't mind. And the number one art crime is the Boston art heist. Now I know what you're thinking. What could possibly top the theft of the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in the entire world? Well, if you're going to steal one masterpiece, why not 13? Yep, the largest art theft in world history occurred in Boston, 1990, when thieves stole 13 pieces from the Isabella Student Gardner Museum. The pieces stolen were 5 Degas, 3 Rembrandts, 1 Manet, 1 Finick, 1 Vermeer, an ancient Chinese coup, and a finial stood atop a Napoleon flag. Altogether, they are worth $500 million. A reward of $5 million is still offered for the information leading up to their return. The loot to this day remains the biggest art theft in history, and one of the pieces missing is Vermeer's The Concert. It's considered the most valuable current stolen painting in the world due to Vermeer's rarity, with the estimated price tag of $300 million. Oddly enough, the thefts didn't steal the Rape of Europa, which is more or less equally as valuable. And even odder, went off to steal this Napoleonic finial, which apparently isn't too much in comparison. The thieves, or their higher power, must have had very specific tastes. Either that, or they were just opportunistic and just didn't really know what they were doing. Either way, I mean, right now, what dastardly evil deeds must these men or person or collection must be doing right now? I just have no idea. Maybe the... Captain Dashbeard? I should have known.
Yes, I have the Vermeer along with all of the other stolen Boston artworks.
Well, I can understand you stealing the Vermeer and the Rembrandt. Well, it kind of looks like a pirate ship, but what's with the Napoleonic finial?
Oh, me parrot died. Now for some real practical action.
No one makes cheap After Effects of the Tate Modern and gets away with it. I'm turning you off.
No, wait! I'm so lonely.
Today's episode of The Pretentious Show has been brought to you by The Pretentious Shop on Etsy. I've got an Etsy store. No, really, there's no joke. Have a look at my work and buy it, please.